Welcome to the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast all about Transformers and, yes, occasionally other toy lines as well, Liam. My name is Sixo, but more on that later because I'm joined as ever by my wonderful co-host, that is Liam from Toybox Soapbox and Jason of JSwags. But we also have another person with us tonight, and that is someone rather special. He's been on the pod before. Some may say that he is the henchest of Transformers comic writers. I don't know if you care to comment
I'd agree,
on that,
yeah.
but we've seen his Instagram, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. James Roberts.
Thank you for that complicated introduction. Yes. It's making me, complex feelings. Thank you for having me back on. Is there a name for your listeners, like a posse name?
Oh, I see.
You know, you need one, I think, don't you?
We do,
there you
don't
go.
we?
That's a good competition.
It is a competition. Let's do a poll. Well, they could just come up with ideas. Our patrons, couldn't they?
Make them work. Make them work for you. Outsource the thinking.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Triplets. I'm going in with triplets.
The triplets.
Do you have 3 listeners or more?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's a little bit lowbrow. Yeah.
I mean, all at once or what?
Just call them. No, we can't call them mini cons because that makes it sound
like they're all small children.
Yeah, triplets is about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, triplets is. Yeah. Well, let's go with that. Anyway, thank you for having me back. Yes, and look, I look after myself. The years aren't getting any kinder, so you've got to be, I owe it to. I was going to say I owe it to future generations, but that sounds slightly narcissistic. So.
I don't know about future generations, but you've certainly inspired all of us, honestly.
Well, listeners, you can't see it, but all 3 of them are in the nude. It was
exactly. That's normal.
It was that's standard, is it? Yeah.
No, but they can, because this is the extra tier we've often spoke about. The
no one would pay for that. Come on,
wow.
You've got to get people on the Patreon somehow, don't you? So
this is why Maz really left, because he didn't want to do it.
He had a no nudes in his contract.
He did, yeah.
Wise man.
Very firm ring around that one. Yeah. That was bad phrasing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
My contract, I asked for it. So I'm not joining unless I'm nude.
Different sides of the same coin, you guys. Yes. Yeah.
When you said my contract, for a minute I thought you said eye contact, like you'd stipulated that there had to be eye contact, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, this is really wrong.
Yeah, Jason only responds to sustained direct eye contact.
Just with a big grin on his face. It's not alarming at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know what to say now, but James, it is a pleasure to have you on. And obviously, we got you on for a very, very valid reason. And I do kind of want to explain this because we put a poll on our Discord, on our Patreon Discord, which we do or have started to do semi-regularly, where we ask our patrons, hey, what would you like us to talk about in an upcoming episode? And we put this poll on and said, okay, so for episode 113, which is coming up, what would you like us to talk about? And we gave them 4 topics. And I want to shout out to our patron, Rob75, who came back and his exact words were, I'm surprised that episode 113 isn't being dedicated to James Roberts. And honestly, I'm not stunned silent very often, but in that moment, it just occurred to me. I was like, how did we not think of this?
It was peak, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was such a good idea.
What was the name of that listener again?
Rob75.
Rob
Roberts.
Who could that be?
Whoa!
What I presume is the birth year isn't quite right, but thank you, Rob. That was it's nice of you to think of me, and I'm eager to dive into why this is such an important issue, not just for me, but for the comic. And any excuse to talk about this era.
Well, this is it, and obviously we all know, and we talk about More Than Meets the Eye on our mini-series on our Patreon, which everybody can go and listen to, and in there we frequently talk about your use of references to 113, which for those, just to kind of, so there's no assumptions made or anything, so everybody's clear, is obviously all linking back to this comic that we're going to talk about tonight, isn't it? Which is Marvel UK issue 113 of the Transformers comic and the kind of issues following that as well. So the opening story is Wanted Galvatron Dead or Alive, which I remember this as a kid just being hugely like a big deal. It was one of those comics that you read, and I think even at whatever age I was at the time, it was just like something that blew your mind open and just made you think, what? What have I just read? This is incredible. And so I'm not surprised to kind of hear that other people, including yourself, James, had the same experience. But I think for you, it's all sort of starts with the cover as well, doesn't it? I think was quite a big deal.
I mean, it was the kind of, so the backstory to this briefly is that, I was quite late to Transformers, and it was only in my 10th birthday in 86, November 86, that I kind of very belatedly got into them, thanks to Blitzwing. And then we went to see the movie, which was out in the December, the following month. And then I think it was a friend of my brother's, my younger brother, his mate had a few issues of the UK comic, and it was issue 96, so part 1 of Prey, that I read of his, and it must have been by that point an older issue, because I think I read it, and it ends with with Prime's, or what appears to be Prime's, dismembered corpse, and I thought, oh yeah, the toys are great, the movie was great, I want to get the comics. I wasn't hugely into comics at this point, and I think that would have been around about May 87. And I think 113 happened to be the first, the latest one out. So that was the first issue that I bought, and I was very lucky. I mean, if I'd bought 1112 or 1114 or whatever, I'm sure I would have stuck with it. 113 just happened to be a perfect, jumping on point. It was not only was it was at the beginning of a new story, but it was, as I would subsequently learn, it was a British story, so it had a different look and feel, arguably more kind of inviting to the uninitiated, and it had Rodimus Prime on the cover, and what appeared to be his debut appearance in the comic. And it wasn't that long ago that I'd seen the movie. So it was essentially the comic sequel to the movie.
Yeah.
And as you said about the cover, I think that's one of Jeff Senior's best.
Stunning. Yeah,
absolutely amazing cover. Yeah, the colors and everything, and the pose, and it's so. I don't want to use the word iconic, because I think that it's really kind of overused. But this to me is iconic, certainly.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is, he if you think about, Jeff is, well, to me and to many others, just the ultimate TF artist. But his covers were a little bit hit and miss. There was something, he was the master of interior art, and I don't know why, but sometimes that carried over into the covers, but not always. But 113 was definitely one of his best covers. And later on a little bit, we'll talk about the rest of the story, and the cover to 117. Which was the Good, the Mad, and the Ugly. I think that's another all-timer.
That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
So he was firing on all cylinders, covers-wise as well at this time.
Yeah, completely agree. And I must admit, I had similar feelings of it. I mean, it's worth putting into context, especially for American listeners, that here, of course, we didn't really get the cartoon. None of us particularly grew up with the cartoon, bar the odd VHS. And even then, you're talking like individual. You did, because you had Sky, didn't you?
It was on the Children's Channel, so we had all the series.
Oh, you were so lucky.
One of those kids. Okay.
Yeah. Posh kids.
Well, a younger kid than Sixo, but still a kid.
By a couple of months.
Yeah.
Still younger, a year younger.
But yes, we didn't have the...
Us
other kids didn't have the TV show, really. We had relying on video gems every few months.
Exactly. Yeah, just the VHS treasures, that was it. But the comic was really it. And I think what's interesting about this issue is that it, as you said, it picks up very neatly after the movie. And so I think if you've seen the movie and you're kind of familiar with it, and that's sort of already stoked the imagination, this is a perfect jumping on point for this comic as well. And it does feel quite fresh, I think, like with all the sort of US stories and everything that Bob was doing around that point, which is all great. But at the time, this definitely for me was something that captured the imagination a lot more, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. In fact, I've only just realized now in talking to you that picking up the comic for the first time, I wouldn't have been aware back then that that there was a cartoon and movie continuity that was at odds to the comic one. It just but as we all know, as most of us know, the movie is the one occasion when the comic and the cartoon continuity kind of intersects. So there was me, just I guess at the time picking up the comic, assuming that it was all one big story, and it just so happened that then it was. But you're right, because Furman had done Target 2006 as part of the kind of New Leaders launch, and then obviously over those 11 issues, Galvatron had proven to be incredibly popular. So popular that they kind of they signposted his return on the cover of issue 93, which is the Christmas issue, and it's got, I'll be back. He'd reappeared in issue 101 and 102 when he fights the Dinobots. But this, from 113 onwards, was really Furman thinking, okay, the future cast, if you like, has gone down really well with readers. And it's time for another big epic, bringing those characters back into it. I've re-established now that Galvatron is back on Earth, back in the past. So yeah, it was a real kind of new phase for him, I think, in terms of his overall storytelling.
Yeah, very much so. I think what's so clever about it is that it feels very much like a sort of sequel to Target 2006, but it does that correct thing that good sequels do, where it feels in keeping with it, but it's not the same, and it also raises the stakes quite considerably. And I think it does that by setting a lot of the action in the future as well, so you get to see the two timelines kind of running parallel, which Target 2006 didn't really do. It just left the future bit alone completely, because that was the movie at that point.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah, apart from a couple of panels, if that, at the end of Target 2006, it was deliberately left unknown because, to the readers at the time, you were going to go and see the movie, and that's when you'd find out about the distant year of 2005/6. But yeah, you're right. This was the first. In fact, I think the first, issue 113 is entirely set.
It is
in the future, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird issue as well, because I don't know what page number it is by the time you actually meet a quote-unquote transformer. I mean, obviously you get a bit in flashback, of Rodimus and Galvatron from the movie. That's the stuff that you know. But I think it's when Scourge and Cyclonus turn up on, like, page 10 or something. I don't know.
It's far in. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's quite a way in that you actually get a proper transformer. Before that, it's all characters you don't know, including Death's Head, of course. And really weird setting.
Yeah, you've got that extended conversation at the beginning between two non-Transformers, haven't you, on El Pasos?
Yes.
So this is the thing for me, right? So when I was, same as you, James, I was 10 years old, and I was, I'll be honest, reading Transformers. I'm putting that in air quotes, everyone, because I was just kind of skimming through it. Best love and respect to Bob Budiansky. But whenever I got a Furman issue, I'd be reading this because it was digging into the characters a bit more. But Death's Head became my character. I love Death's Head. I have everything to do with Death's Head, and this was his first appearance on this as well. And what an intro to a character! I absolutely love it. It's just brilliant, and it's such a brave move as well in the fact that it is 10 pages until we get a Transformer coming into it as well. It was like good step change in my mind.
No, definitely. In fact, I'm going to set your listeners a challenge, and you can remind me to give the answer at the end of this chat. But there's another issue of Transformers UK where there's no Autobots and Decepticons in it, apart from one panel.
Oh, that's a good, right?
Okay. That's a really good question.
I'm not going to think about that now, but I'm going to try and do it with the patrons later. That's cool.
So yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, I was the same as you, Jason. Death's Head just made an immediate impact. I think reading the issue, it was apparent to a novice even that this was a new character. There was no suggestion that he'd. So another reason it felt like I was kind of in the club straight away. Senior's design is iconic. It's a very overused word, but I mean it's an incredibly striking and well designed character visually.
Yeah.
But what's also really noticeable is how close to the Death's Head we know and love his characterization is from the beginning as well. I mean, obviously the speech, the mannerisms are there, and the kind of the quirkiness of speech. As I was reading through this whole story, the 8 issue or the 9 issues, the only thing which I felt was developed a little bit down the line was his kind of sense of humor. But there is a couple of instances near the end of these 9 issues, or because he disappears in part 8, spoiler alert. But there's a couple of instances where he's a little sardonic, and and I think when he fights Soundwave, he's a little bit sarcastic, and I think that if you like, the real Death's Head's bleeding through there. But generally he's as he is here is as you'd find him 5 years later, really.
Yeah, he's defined, isn't he?
Yeah, lightning in a bottle type characters. Really,
it really is.
I love that about the fact that your intro to him, he's very clearly got his own agenda. And then that whole moment as well where he just absolutely brutalizes the barman and doesn't pay for his drink at the end of it. And it's just like it's great characterization of just like, all right, I know who this guy is now. More than anything else.
That page where he smashes the barman's head into the wall. Everything about that page is burnt into my brain, I swear. I remember reading it endlessly as a kid. And it's even the little things like the way the eyes pop out on the barman and things like this is just neurons firing when I look at it, honestly. So, but I think Death's Head himself has got real kind of cowboy vibes in this to me as well. I know he's I don't want to say it, but he's a bounty hunter. I know it's not what he would say, but
careful now.
Freelance peacekeeping agent, sorry. But I almost imagine... I don't know if it makes sense, this, but like you watch like The Mandalorian, and they've kind of done that sort of space cowboy thing with it, where you can almost hear like the spurs jangling and things like this as he's walking. And I kind of have that vibe with Death's Head a little bit as well, like with his one man ship and things like this. I don't know.
I think you're spot on, and I think actually Simon Furman has said that he kind of envisioned Wanted, Galvatron Dead or Alive as a kind of spaghetti western. And you've got that in the title of the first two-parter anyway, Wanted, Galvatron Dead or Alive, and you start off literally the first splash page is a Wanted poster. El Pasos, the alien planet that is, a reference to the Fistful of Dollars trilogy, isn't it? The Good, the Bad, and of course they've got the good, the bad, and the ugly riff on issue 117. Now, I would say it's not consistent throughout. It's strongest in the first issue and issue 120. When you have the kind of the standoff,
the showdown.
Yeah, exactly. The pistol shootout.
But in a broader sense, you do have that kind of Mexican standoff in the fact you've got Rodimus and Death's Head and Galvatron. At various points, they're all kind of gunning for each other, really. And just before I forget, the bartender. In fact, that both Death's Head and the bartender in that scene, if you amalgamated them, you've got Rung. And when I said to Alex Milne, this is what I want Rung to look like, those were the two things that I referenced.
Is that right?
So,
that's cool.
Really?
The kind of obviously they both got eyebrow. Death's Head wins on the eyebrows front.
Yeah,
but,
that's
both
funny.
But the barman the bar droid has very expressive eyebrows too. But the kind of spindliness of the bar droid was what inspired Rung's.
That is hilarious. Yeah. What a bit of trivia.
That is cool. That's really good.
I can see it as well. Now that you mention it, it's so, it's clear, obviously. Like, it's not a direct one-to-one or anything, but you can sort of see that the DNA of it is there. That's fascinating.
Yeah, inspired by. And then what a incredible fight in the back half of that issue, when Death's Head takes on Cyclonus and Scourge. And I think that was the other reason why Death's Head made an impression. It was probably the first time in the comic, not that I knew this, but retroactively I learned, there's never really been a serious non-Transformers threat, apart from arguably Circuit Breaker. But, to have another mechanoid, I don't think we'd had any other mechanoid races in the comic. I'm thinking, is that wrong? But I don't, it basically been set on Earth, and the Cybertron stuff was restricted to the bots and cons, I think.
Yeah, I think so. You'd had what was his name? Was it
Centurion?
Centurion, who was the mind-controlled guy, wasn't he?
That, who I loved when he was back in Ancient Relics. Yeah,
but he was human ultimately, though.
Yeah, that was it. It was controlled. Totally.
And relatively easily dispatched as well. But Death said, as the story as was deliberate in the way that he bests Cyclonus and Scourge, he's established as a serious threat. In fact, everything he does, next thing he encounters, Bumblebee, and he arrives on Earth and he effectively kills Bumblebee, and then he beats Soundwave, and so it's deliberately done, of course.
Do you know, actually, on that, we'll jump forward there to that bit with Bumblebee, though, but we were chatting about this, and spoiler for a future mini-sode, but that is a panel that is seared into my mind when Bumblebee gets destroyed by Death's Head, because I then love this character Death's Head, because he takes on two really powerful Decepticons and beats them, and then arrives and just point blank shoots Bumblebee because he's going to blow his cover. And I just like the violence of his explosion. I was like, oh, my 10-year-old self was like, this is awful, It was like so.
I'm looking at the panel now, actually, and it's Will Simpson artwork, and two things I think make it particularly visceral. One is the fact that Death's Head shoots. So ordinarily, a character would shoot another character. You'd see the blast, and then you'd see the explosion. and Simpson inserts another panel in between those two things, which is just Bumblebee howling in agony.
Yeah,
you know?
screaming, yeah.
It's like
he's just screaming, and then there's that kind of almost Kirby-esque dots, the black dots coming from his mouth. So and it's got that kind of nightmarish quality that we saw when Straxus takes over or tries to take over Megatron's mind a few issues earlier, and it's got that kind of contorted metal agony thing. So I'm not surprised that you were traumatized by that.
Yeah,
it is horrific. Yeah,
it really is. It's all the wires coming out of his neck and all these elements as well. And this is the thing, like, it's really interesting. I was reading this with my son earlier, and he'd never read this. I was reading it to him as we were going through it, and he, bless him, he actually looked at his own books. He was looking at a movie book at the same time. But I was like, do you want me to keep reading? And he was absolutely absorbed in the story, but less so in the visuals, with best love and respect. But it was, I think the difference now between what we were getting then, which is like, 40-year-old comic, to what we're getting now and what he's used to and what he's used to seeing. So this thing didn't really bother him. He was not really that fussed about it. It was me, I got the trauma from it.
Interesting.
But it was a story that he was really listening to it. So it could have just been, a little novel that I was reading to him, and he was getting engrossed in that part of it as well.
Yeah, I must admit, with my son, there's various times. I mean, when we sat and watched the movie for the first time, I was like, oh, how's he going to be with this? Is he going to be all right? And he was fine. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, like, he just sort of took it all in his stride. We had a brief bit where Windcharger and Wheeljack are lying on the floor, and he was like, why are they lying down? I was like, well, they're dead, darling. They're dead.
Oh, you didn't just go there asleep?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bad news.
They slept through the entire thing and woke up like, dude.
Yeah. Just having a nap, yeah. But then we got into a whole thing around why RC was moving them and stuff like that. And that was really the only conversation. But there was a bit at the start where Ironhide gets killed, and he's kind of like, oh, is he actually dead? And I was like, yeah, he is.
Yeah, it's hard to explain your way out of that one. That's
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
I think after 2 seasons of these guys just having this stuff bounce off them, it was a bit strange.
Yeah.
But the comic was never really like that, though. And I think this panel, this bit with Bumblebee, is exactly why that was so. I mean, I just love the callousness of it, of when he says, makes you an endangered species, and Bumblebee says you, and he just goes, yep. And that's it.
That's it. It's like 2 panels and he's just exploded. Awful. It's horrible. I know.
I like the very British dialogue of yep as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. Every time you read it, you can tell it's very British.
Yeah, very
but
much
no, it's a really masterful way of introducing a new non-Transformer threat. Like I said, the Jeff Senior fight scene between Death's Head and Cyclonus and Scourge is one of the very best, I think.
It's
and
brilliant.
Even now, I notice things. I mean, so I'm looking at the page now where the kind of the firefight begins, and Death's Head shoots. Well, first of all, he shoots Cyclonus, and then he shoots at Cyclonus. Sorry, he shoots Scourge, and then he shoots at Cyclonus, who deflects his blast with this kind of wrench, this iron bar. And it's that's of course on the next page, the iron bar that he uses to try and smack Death's Head in the face. Really, really violent, fantastically done. And then we see the time machine from 2006. That attention to detail again.
Yeah, it's remarkably coherent.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. It's like an extended pre-credit sequence. It reads very much like that.
Yeah, I just think that the visuals are so strong. I love the panel of Death's Head holding Cyclonus by the neck, with him just in shadow in the background. Completely blacked out, apart from his little red eyes. And I just think this is the sort of visual storytelling that as kids I think we just didn't get all the time, and it's why stuff like Jeff's artwork stood out to me. And I mean, to be fair, even some of the other stuff, Dan Reed and the other guys, Jeff is definitely, like you, James, that's the goat, to quote the kids, that's the goat for me. But I still, and certainly in later years especially, have come to appreciate what having all of those different artists means or meant, at the time, and why it was such a feast. Even if it was a week where you got an artist where you were like, they're not my favorite, there was still something about it that kind of added to the sort of texture of the comic, if that sort of makes sense,
No, totally. And I think we didn't realize it, but it was kind of exercising our appreciation of comic art in a way that we didn't really appreciate at the time. I mean, this is Dan Reed's first story, isn't it? So he debuts in issue 114 5, and then he comes back for 119. And when I think I've seen it a few times, when kind of the kids that grew up on the UK comic are kind of showing, our American cousins, this if we're talking about consistent character design, and it's always, bless him, it's always Dan Reed's Megatron from Time Wars that's kind of held up as like, but when he, his famous bendy limbs, when we see Ultra Magnus in Part 3, I think from the first page, he's got
so weird.
It's a very different take, but you just kind of roll with it, do you?
You do. It is wildly inconsistent in places. I mean, Goldbug changes color quite a bit and things like this from issue to issue, but it sort of is what it is. And I think, again, it wasn't a problem growing up. I don't ever recall thinking, oh, this doesn't make sense. Is this the same character or what's going on,
We were quite forgiving, but there's a bit where Cup and Blur are the wrong color. But that was all just part of the, it was like I was used to reading enough comics that this was consistently something that just happened, and there'd just be this odd panel. But at that point, I was so engrossed it didn't really matter.
And the changes in style never kind of registered as a continuity error. You just kind of knew instinctively as a kid, well, yeah, these are the same characters. They're just drawn a different way this week, And
I think sometimes the different art actually really lends itself to the particular moment as well. Like the bit I always think of is where Cindy is talking to Magnus later on and says, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't know, I thought he was your friend. And then it turns out that it's Galvatron that she's been speaking to.
Yeah.
And the panel where he comes out of the flames and everything, and it's just horrific. But of course, that Dan Reed artwork is just so scary and kind of evocative. But if it had been done by anybody else, it wouldn't be the same panel.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're quite right. And actually, the same thing springs to mind with City of Fear. That was Dan Reed was the right person to draw, the zombie two-parter from 164 and 165 for the same reasons. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Wasn't it that as well though? Because Dan Reed, he was really good at the human characters because he had that kind of, it was that more organic stuff that you were getting as well. So you get Cindy, and then it would mean that you would get the bendy-limbed kind of Autobots and stuff like that. But it did we needed that for those characters, because these are actually, we don't get many until later on. We don't get many human characters that are that well developed. But they very quickly, you very quickly get into kind of who Cindy is and her who she is, and actually, keep in mind this is the 80s. This is a strong female character who's like basically telling these giant robots what is going on. There's a lot going on in that as well for something that, as my 10-year-old brain was looking at, but. The artwork for that just worked for the human characters, and we needed that for that kind of that stage of the story in my mind, not a Jeff Senior style, if you know.
No, you're right, and I mean the other. So we've got Senior on Part 1, then you got Will Simpson, then you got Dan Reed, and I think it's there Will Simpson. Then Jeff Senior is brought back very deliberately by Furman for the rematch, the Magnus Galvatron fight. Then it's Simpson again. Then you've got Jeff Anderson, inked by Stephen Baskerville for the first time, I think. That was that went on to be quite a common collaboration, but I think this is the first time the two worked together. And then, Reed pops back up. We've got Senior for what was the finale in the comic, 120, and then Anderson coming back for the final part in the annual. So it's a real mix. And it's, even with Target 2006, there was a few times where, the same artist would handle a two-parter. But this really is, and I suspect it's been chopped and changed in order that Senior can hit the first and the last parts, and because by then, Furman would have known exactly, he may not have thought, he may not have tried to assign, Dan Reed to those particular issues at this point, Jason, but maybe later on. But certainly you think, okay, well, I want Senior to hit this mark and this mark.
Totally. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
He knew what was good, I'm sure. I mean, that final issue in the comic, obviously, yes, there's the annual, which is the actual last part, but issue 120, this is another one that I remember reading for the first time so clearly, because it is the Mexican standoff, between Rodimus and Galvatron, which is just so good. And it's funny because when we had Simon on the pod and we were chatting with him, and it's something I've heard him talk about before, about Jeff's art, and saying that actually, he felt that Jeff's art was sort of superior when it wasn't boxed in, sort of came a point where actually Jeff was able to be a lot more free and kind of go out of the panels and things like this. And it's interesting because it's something I've heard, Bill Watson talk a lot about with Calvin and Hobbes and things as well, or read a lot about Bill Watson, about how sort of being free of the boxes and all of this kind of stuff. But actually, I remember saying to Simon that this particular page, for me, reads better because of the way that it has to be in those boxes. It adds to the quality of the fight in a weird way. And I think it wouldn't be the same if they were sort of, I don't know, big splash pages and things like this. It's sort of the fact that it's hemmed in sort of makes it work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, but there are some, not that I want to, promote your rivals, but there are some other Transformers podcasts out there. And I know, and, Furman and Wildman do The Rest is Giant Robots.
Yeah.
And I know that, in the old days, Furman would take Andrew Wildman to task for kind of, skimping on the background detail. But in issue 120, when Jeff, I know I'm jumping between first and second names here. When Senior handles that standoff, it really works. It's right that you're just focusing on the foreground. You've just this, and going back to kind of reliving that, those early days when this was only kind of month 2 of me reading the comic, and I remember 120. I'd loved all the issues, but 120 was when I felt the feeling I'd felt in 113 again.
Yeah.
And I probably did connect it to Senior's art, but it was just that visceral kind of fight. And I would, I'd hold, there's a few pages in particular, but in fact, most of that issue is just an incredibly well choreographed fight. But I think for me, Senior depicts the most kind of violent and as I say, visceral, impactful fighting. And even if you look at sort of kind of Senior's Transformers fights over the years, those few panels when Galvatron is raining blow after blow on Rodimus, and then stamps his head in the ground, it's incredibly kinetic, very very
it really
good.
is. Yeah.
I was going to mention this myself because I think actually that this is going to sound really strange to say, but I think that was the first time I remember reading or seeing a fight depicted in this way where it actually made sense. If you know what I'm saying, because you often read fights in comics and it's like, okay, they're being punched, but how do they go from, I don't know, punching with their left hand to kicking in the next panel? It doesn't sort of make sense. Yeah. Whereas what you see here is very clearly that he uppercuts Rodimus in the one panel, pummels him with his other hand in the chest in the next, and then with the other hand again, knocks him down into the dirt and then stamps on him. And it just flows beautifully. And it's brilliant. Really makes sense.
It's almost step by step, isn't it?
It's storyboarded.
How it works.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like what Jeff Senior does so well. And that's what I love about him. He's got this animator's eye to his illustration where he'll just take those key moments and storyboard it and put it into these panels. And this issue 120 just looks like a storyboard, like beautifully rendered storyboard panels to me.
Actually, I'm just, as I'm sure you are too, I'm looking at the issue in question now, and I hadn't realised till you commented, the last 5 pages of that issue are just 2x3. They're just 6 panel. And it really works. So here's the thing about, putting the story in a broader context. Ian Rimmer was the second editor of the comic. He took over from Sheila Cranner. He took over and it went weekly, and he was at the helm from round about issue 22 until about issue 104. The Resurrection Part 2 is the last time that I think we see Ian Rimmer given a credit as editor. And then Simon Furman took over, and he was with the comic until round about the Underbase. But as it may have been discussed on the show before, if not elsewhere, there was a kind of Marvel rule, and if you were the editor, you couldn't also write the stories. It had already been established Simon was the right person to do Transformers, and there wasn't really any other natural successors. So, he would continue to write, but and he would kind of edit his own stuff. But Richard Starkings, who worked for Marvel UK at the time, went on to run a hugely influential lettering company. But Richard Starkings became his editor, and Simon had to, pass his scripts to Richard to look over. And there's a few copies of the Space Wars script, Space Pirates script knocking around, where you can see Starkings' handwritten annotations, and they're pretty brutal. Anyway, all of which is to say, on rereading this, I do notice a slight shift, and I may be reading too much into it, but there's a difference between Furman's stories from 113 onwards and the ones that came before. Even Fallen Angel, which is when we mentioned it earlier when Galvatron arrived, it's got a slightly different tone to it, and the ones prior to that, In the National Interest, Target 2006, and others, slightly different tone. And I wonder whether this is the influence of Richard Starkings, however subtle. And I think it's most evident in this particular story, I think, in two ways. One is that unlike Target 2006, this isn't Wanted Galvatron Dead or Alive parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is broken down into more easily digestible 2-part stories.
That's true.
And I think that's partly because, I would suspect that it's partly because the powers that be said, look, if a kid, this is ironic considering where I came in, but if a kid picks up a comic and it's part 7 of a story, you might be, less inclined to give it a go. But if it's like, part 1 or part 2, yeah, I haven't missed too much. So I think structurally, that's a change. But also, if you read it, in nearly every single issue, at least a page is spent recapping what's happened so far.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And that wasn't as prominent in earlier things.
No, it's true. You got a little recap, didn't you? Kind of at the start, in the sort of opening page before the story began. But then it was almost like, right, we're right into it, particularly with Target 2006. Whereas, actually here, there's a lot of... they were doing the swerve thing, like at the start of your issues, James, where it's kind of like, what have you missed?
Totally.
Yeah.
Which was interesting when it was weekly, though, right?
And you don't see it again. I mean, after this, the next big epic was Legacy of Unicron. You don't see it in that. You don't see it. I mean, it might. Yeah, you'd have a couple of panels. Otherwise, you rely on the editorial to do that heavy lifting. So I suspect that this was a kind of Richard Starkings innovation. And maybe then, as the kind of Richard took less of an interest in what Simon was doing and whatever, it kind of reverted to the norm a bit more. But certainly, it jumped out at me reading it ahead of this podcast, of this episode, that a lot of time is spent telling readers things. If you were here last week, you'd know about it. But,
totally, it's I did notice the same thing as I was reading it as well. But there's even like the bit on the inner page as well, where it's kind of doing a little epic, it's like another epic comes to a close, and it does a kind of like intro bit as well, so it has those bits. But I did wonder when I was reading it to my son, I was like, is he going to get bored of the fact that we've literally just read that? And then I'm reading the same stuff again. But honestly, he was absolutely engrossed and just wrapped up in the characters and the story and wanting to know
so good.
Who's going to win. Right, who's going to win this one? Right, and that, and even then he was kind of asking, "It's like how many pages is this?" And it's very short. Very short little.
Yeah. It's brisk. It moves at a pace.
It moves at a pace, doesn't it? Yeah, totally.
It's a unique story. I mean, it's after Target 2006. It's the longest. It's the longest of the epics. Yeah. I know down the line we get into kind of real kind of Unicron war arcs that last months, but you know what I mean, presented as a single story, notwithstanding the episode titles shift. But it's the biggest one after Target 2006. It's got a lot of moving. It's quite simple, but it's got a lot of moving parts. So you're introducing Death's. You've got to get all the people in the right place. So we haven't talked about 114 much, but I mean that's almost. I think that's always nearly entirely set in 2007. That's about Rodimus and co giving chase, and then Death's already on Earth, so he needs to be kept busy. Which I think he goes to the Wyoming base, doesn't he? He goes to the old Decepticon base.
That's right. Yeah, little
which
quip
costs
about
him
the fact
some time.
it was bad data.
So it takes a while for them all to come together, and then meanwhile you kind of have this escalating fights. So you've got Magnus versus Galvatron in part 4. So you've got 1v1, and then next time in I think 117, 118 we're going to get a taster fight, and that's when Death's comes into. But it's not a full blown confrontation. Magnus is still out, I think, out of it, and Goldberg hasn't probably come in yet. And then at the end, we get all the combatants coming together. So it escalates quite neatly. You mentioned the Cindy character. That's in a way it's surprising. We do see Cindy again, don't we? In the ladies' night.
She comes back for ladies' night.
She does,
which it's funny, the ladies' night one, because I didn't get this comic at the time. I think this must have been before I would have been too young to be. I think a lot of these issues I read after the fact, if you will, and I'm not sure how I got them. I think my mum maybe bought some of them secondhand or something. I'm not sure, because I think Ladies' Night was one of the ones that I remember seeing first, and it was in the dentist's waiting room, and I remember it so
what a
keenly.
dentist!
I know, it was just there on the side, and I remember looking.
That would have
at
been taken if it was my dentist by
right.
me.
Exactly, but it was the image of them frozen in the molten rock or whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember as whatever age I was, I would have been about 5, just reading it and seeing it and going, you know, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, this is so cool. Look at this, and then somehow acquired the sort of back issues or whatever as well. I've no idea how, honestly, but still remember reading it.
Wow,
but yeah,
that's interesting, because you're older than I am, but I was reading the book at this time. Like, I had these issues because it's 120 where I turned on it. I didn't like it, the previous issues, because I came from the cartoon, because I was watching the cartoon. So these were some of the earliest issues I got into. So I remember all of these. And I remember I really didn't like Death's Head at first.
No.
And it's the final issue when you have the image of Galvatron, and suddenly it was like a switch went in my head where I was like, oh, it is Galvatron. Like, all the way through it, I'm reading it going, this isn't the cartoon. These aren't the same people.
Right. It's interesting.
I always had a thing as a kid where, you know, in comics when they would introduce like really random people that didn't feel part of the world. And at first that was my feeling with Death's Head. I was like, he's like a person, but really tall as a robot. And it took me a while as a small 5 or 6-year-old to get my head around what was going on there. I was like, but why? Why? And yet I love the Pretenders for the same silly reason. But when it got to this part, and when we got to the big fight at the end, I went back, and I remember growing up, I would go back and reread these issues several times. Like the one with Rodimus Prime on the cover, that became really iconic to me. Like that issue was the one from the comic for me. 113.
Do you know, you kind of hit something that I never thought about, Liam, but curveball is my nature, but I hadn't seen Transformers the movie. I didn't see it for, I genuinely don't remember when I first saw Transformers the movie, if I'm completely honest. I never saw it at the cinema. Whether I saw it on a VHS possibly or on TV, can't genuinely remember. Okay, so everything about my Transformers was very much the toys and absolutely the comic. You know, I have them all upstairs, every single UK comic issue, and that was what captured my imagination as a young kid, and that's what kept me going all the way through it. And so everything about the lore and what I was learning came from UK comic for me. Absolutely, that's where it was. But what's interesting is this comic has brought all 4 of us in kind of different routes and worked for each of us in a manner, which is really interesting, isn't it? When you think about it, that's like our entry point is all changed.
Yeah. For me, it was always the cartoon, and so it was always the comic. It took me a long time to really reconcile the two things as the same thing but different, if that makes any kind of sense. Like they are the same franchise, but it always felt like it was wrong. That was the only way I could describe it as a little child. It was like, it's like I'm reading the wrong version of the Transformers, and then eventually I started to enjoy it, and now I prefer it to the cartoon. And it took a long time for that to be a thing. Like there's a moment when Rodimus Prime kills the Hunter Seeker guy, and now you're like, when you watch the movies and they just Prime does this reckless abandon, you're kind of like, this is horrifying. And in my head I'm like, oh yeah, in the comic I remember being quite mortified that this was a thing Rodimus Prime is doing.
Very different Prime.
Totally. Exactly. I think if you like, that's not that there's a right or wrong reaction, but that's probably the right reaction in the sense of that's what that's what Furman was going for. And as you know, as Sixo just alluded to, you know, that's clearly the intention is to make you think, okay, this is a very different Prime than the one we're used to. And actually, even now, I mean, if we can kind of put to one side, you know, some of the Bayverse violence, but you know, certainly within the context of the UK comic, for an Autobot and an Autobot leader to do something like that was really striking. In a way which perhaps I didn't appreciate so much at the time, being new to it. But really, and of course, you know, deliberately paralleling the movie Request for Mercy as well. And actually, Rodimus Prime's kind of ruthlessness doesn't necessarily carry forward too far beyond this particular story.
No.
he spends most of the rest of the story, being a little bit guilt-ridden about what he's done in putting a bounty, and actually, and even putting a bounty out for a Galvatron is a good idea, Rodimus. I'm sorry, that's outsource it, do it.
Yeah. You'd have time for the
why
manpower.
not,
Yeah.
But no, that's a really striking scene, and issue 114, with Blur and Cup. And again, I didn't appreciate this till I kind of did my homework before we talked, but there's a good scene between Rodimus and Cup in issue 114 where, and it kind of reflects their dynamic, and it sort of speaks to the Hot Rod Cup friendship. And Cup is kind of saying to Prime, it's funny because Prime executes a Decepticon in cold blood, and then virtually the very next panel is like, oh God, what have I done? type thing. And Cup's like, hey, it's fine, it's war.
You're good.
But beyond that scene, Cup and Blur say nothing. In the rest of I think there's one speech balloon given to Blur in issue 117 or 118, but they're just background, and
don't talk.
They don't talk. I mean, they're there because of the Target 2006 thing, but we've already got the story is full of very big, physically and in other senses, big characters. Galvatron, Rodimus, Magnus, Death's Head. They are taking up all the space, and I think even Cindy, Magnus tells her to scram, and actually, but I'm programmed now when I read the stuff to think, well, she'll come back. She'll come back and somehow help. But no, that's it. She's gone.
She's gone. That's it.
Cindy.
Bye. That's
so true.
I'm out of here.
She's a woman of her word. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. That's pretty good.
So that jumped out. But yeah.
There are a lot of moving parts, as you say, and I do think he handles it really well, Furman, because it's quite incredible to me the two timelines thing. You've got the present day, the future set thing, and the far flung future of 2007 or whatever it is at this point. God, who can think that far ahead? But
oh, please don't.
I know, it's depressing, isn't it? But it is a lot of moving parts, and I think what particularly occurred to me rereading this today is that you've got that added complication of characters that exist in both timelines as well, because you've got Shockwave appearing in both, and you've got Magnus, who is a past character but is referred to in the future as well, and I think does appear in the future briefly as well, doesn't he? Because you get a scene with him and Rodimus. I must admit, as a kid, Magnus was the one that it really took me a lot of time trying to wrap my brain around. Okay, what is the timeline here? Do you know what I mean? How does Magnus, how is he here and there? And how is this he's in the future, but he's now, and and it was, I think once it clicked for me with Magnus, he was almost the sort of, I don't know what the word is, but the sort of barometer for where I was in the story
kind of like
at any point.
The linchpin almost.
The linchpin, yeah.
It's remarkable actually, because Furman leads into that. There's a segue, which begins in the past, and you've got the present day Ultra Magnus reacting to something. And then there's that classic kind of comic conceit where either the thought bubble or the speech balloon carries over into the next. It becomes the kind of scene transition link, and so you literally go from present day Magnus thinking something or commenting, and future Magnus mirrors that thought. And I mean, it's a nice little writer's conceit, but and I didn't think this as a kid. I'm like, well, two things. You've obviously. That if you think about it, Magnus is going to survive. But then I guess, you've already seen him in the movie. So, if you think about these things that deeply, that it appears not really threatened. But then the other thing which occurred to me at the time was like, well, why don't you ask 2007 Magnus, well, what happened?
Yes,
back in 1987.
Totally.
Does no one remember this? But in a weird way, and not. I mean, this is unresolvable because and I think it's a net positive that it is. But how the time travel works within the TF-UK universe is kind of. I mean. And in a way, by the time you get to Time Wars, intentionally or not, it kind of they said, what? It just everything's rewritten. Everything's in flux and rewritten.
Yeah.
So you can kind of the rules allow for the future cast not to know
what's going on.
They can't go back and look in the archives and see what. How did this turn out?
No,
it's all kind of in flux. I think is
it's
how
funny,
I look
isn't
at
it? I have to say, and piecing together the timeline here and sort of really thinking about how it all plays out, it's remarkable to me that with. I mean, essentially two, but two instances of Galvatron time jumping. but broken down over several big epics where it's like stuff's happening in the future, stuff's happening in the past. Bearing in mind that Simon was writing this on the fly and all setting it around what was going on in the US book as well, it's remarkable to me how well it hangs together. And actually the sort of dissonance that starts to occur in the timeline, the drift, if you will, towards what becomes Time Wars, actually ends up being really clever. Like it ends up working in a way that, you know, and then you've got the whole, is Galvatron actually the Straxus Megatron and things like this, you know, and maybe that's why he doesn't know what his own memories are and things like this, you know, and it's so, as you said, by design or not, it ends up being incredibly clever and sort of hangs together brilliantly in a way that can't have been intended, but just sort of
this is it.
Works.
I think by the time we get to Time Wars, Furman's thinking, right, well, I'm going to lampshade this. I'm actually going to weave it into the story and flag up the fact that present day or the future characters can't remember the present panning out in the way that it did, which does. And briefly, we did talk about, you know, the effect of Dan Reed's art, and the other thing he's good at is this kind of queasy apocalyptic feel, and that's what he brought to Time Wars. So you've got, you know, I remember the Dan Reed episodes, and then, you know, Galvatron losing half his face and Megatron, you know, and then not remembering that happening, and it makes it all seem really, you know, deliciously kind of warped, and you really don't know where things are heading. But do you know, for me as well, this was post Back to the Future. We'd started getting these kind of big kind of the sci-fi time travel stuff was coming in. Getting this in comics, you know, I was reading other comics obviously at the same time as well. But I do remember it inspiring me to the point where I still play this same game with myself to this day, where I would play a little time trick and I'd just say to my friend Andrew and be like, if we can ever time travel, let's leave ourselves a note underneath that skirting board, and then we'd go over and go and look behind this skirting board, and there was no note there, and it's like, okay, well, we can't time travel then. I think the problem is, I've said this so many times. Checkmate, Einstein.
Exactly, I've done myself. I've said this so many times, I've forgotten where to put all the notes. This is the problem, right? So this is how I get around any time travel story, Jason. Is that it does hang together to a certain point, but you do need to let the reader there's a leap of faith going on in some of this stuff as well, right? As well, but I agree, Sixo. You know, this does as a comic, which is all its disparate parts around the US. It is phenomenal how it works as one piece. Overall, it's really cool.
Weirdly, even the fact that, you know, Furman sort of wrote himself into a corner with two Megatrons because it was a consequence of him taking over the US book, and of course he'd sort of, I suppose, the mistake, quote unquote, and not that I would deem it as such, was featuring Megatron so highly in the UK book that when he took over the US book, he sort of had to bring Megatron back without all the backstory that he himself had written, if that makes sense. So you sort of, he put himself in this position where he then had to explain that, and then created a Megatron clone, and it was really Straxus and whatever else. But actually, weirdly, that also, as convoluted as that is, and that's the closest that it comes to sort of falling apart, if you like, that also adds to the madness in a way that works, because then you get as I say, the dissonance with Galvatron and who is Galvatron really, and that once you figure it out, once you think, hang on, the Time Wars Megatron is not Megatron, then it becomes fascinating to me. It adds a whole other element.
I'm a two Megatrons apologist or a defender. I unironically rank that as one of my favorite stories because that late in the day, Furman was still going to great lengths to try and make it all make sense, you know, and a writer that didn't really care would have just, you know, let the readers worry about it. But, you know, he went to those lengths, and even actually in the story itself, I think Ravage says, you know, oh, so you mean the Megatron I fought beside in the Time Wars was, and then, you know, Straxus. Really good. Galvatron's character is interesting because in Target 2006, he's incredibly rational and logical and smart, you know, and he's, you know, strategic, and he's got a plan. When he reappears in Fallen Angel, you know, he's hit the Earth at kind of near terminal velocity, and, you know, he's just suffered a defeat at the hands of, and he's, you know, he's scrambled. And then I think, you know, Blaster's electro scrambler or whatever further fries his brain. So, you know, as the covers tell you at the time, you know, he's mad, he's insane. And then, you know, for much of Wanted, Galvatron, Dead or Alive, he's also, I mean, God knows the characters keep on telling us that he's mad.
Yeah.
Really, really
insane. Yeah.
Insane, yeah. And even the cover, if you look at the covers, actually, we've got, I think there's several references to how back crazy this guy is. Anyway, and then when he appears in, is it Salvage? Enemy Action, when the Seacons are introduced, he's actually back to his more, he's very cunning and canny, and he if you remember, he doesn't attack the Decepticons. He lets, by not attacking them, he seeds doubt. He sows seeds of doubt among the present day Decepticons and undermines Shockwave's leadership. So he's back to being kind of scheming Galvatron again.
Yeah.
And then by the time we get to Time Wars, he is again, in fact, more than ever. He's very
unhinged,
off the leash. Yeah.
The bit I always remember is Optimus Prime describing him as a mad dog.
Mad be put down. Yeah,
just those two words together, just absolutely rung in my brain. Honestly,
I know we're off piste a bit, but the Time Wars line is like some modern day Canute. That's always the bit. And you as a kid, you're like, I don't know what that means, but like, right. He is like a modern day Canute, actually. That's exactly what he's like.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But going back to Wanted, I mean, the other challenge I think for Simon was with Target 2006, very, very clear, understandable strategic aim, which is kill Unicron, which we found. And when he comes into Fallen Angel, he articulates his aims as, sticking around in the present day and leading the Decepticons. But here, for much of this story, it's become attaining godhood. So becoming which isn't at odds with ruling the present day cons, but it's kind of it's a necessary. It's a more grandiose plan, because
it's a step up. Yeah.
We need the kind of the stakes to be higher, and the siphoning a volcano, it's one of those things you're like, oh, why hasn't that been done before? That's a really, again, it's a really simple but effective and very much, it reflects the ethos of the original cartoon, actually, doesn't it? It's that kind of energy-driven plot, but turned inwards, which befits, Simon's centering of the characters. So that works. And I was really pleased to see in Secrets, I think it was Secrets and Lies, one of the last IDW series that Furman wrote in that continuity. Well, in the kind of whatever you want to call it, the kind of 90 degrees continuity to the Marvel UK stuff, which is he brings the volcano siphon device back into it. That was a good kind of retro nod for me. So Galvatron's got a simple aim. As I said earlier, it's a pretty straightforward story, notwithstanding the moving parts. And it goes by at a heck of a pace as well. It really does. It really does. It doesn't let up. And I think we should talk about the controversial wrap up to the story, both in kind of conceit and execution.
Oh, well, because of the annual?
Because of the annual, yeah. So, I mean, 120 is one of my favourite issues. I think it's as we've discussed, Senior's art is impeccable. It's a really well designed fight. And it's got a really good twist at the end. That is a great, when Galvatron is pretty much bested or is about to best everyone, we've established that even in his Goldbug form, Bumblebee is no match for anyone, really.
Yeah.
And then it's just him and Galvatron at the end. Magnus is, we presume, dead. It's a really good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It should have been resolved in issue 121.
Yeah.
So I can I can understand the experiment and fair play to both the comic itself and Simon, latterly saying, "Oh, it's not something we would do again." Although, the Megatron v Galvatron fight, which was set up in Dry Run, was in the annual. But anyway.
But that was sort of different in that you could not read that and be okay. I think that was a sort of I mean, it's a great. I love Dry Run. I think it's a really great. It's sort of a standalone story, but it's a before the storm thing, isn't it? Where it's a precursor, if anything. It fills in the blanks.
The thing is, though, I said this earlier to Sixo and Liam, James, but until tonight, I had not read the annual, so had never got my hands on it. Didn't have it. Didn't have a physical copy of it, so had never actually finished this.
Really?
Yeah, never. I never had any of the annuals, and it used to drive me nuts, and it was so frustrating. And I was
it was
like,
a highlight of every Christmas. Those annuals.
We couldn't get them in Scotland. You know, we were they couldn't send such heavy books that far north. I presume. So,
they wouldn't accept Scottish money. Was that what it was?
Probably that. Actually, that's what it was.
So there's been 38 years since you read issue 120.
Yeah,
and you're like, I might get round one day to finding out how it ends. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm never curious.
But it was funny because for me, I didn't. It was like. I will have just read that and been like, oh, cliffhanger, and then just gone next week, got the other comic with my other comics that I was getting at the same time, and that was it. I was off, right? You know, that kind of thing. And never the annuals, because the annuals are coming out each Christmas, weren't they, as well? Did I not have to wait or something like that?
Yeah, they tended to be given as Christmas presents, but they came out sometimes as early as July. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But I completely missed it, and it's so funny that I was like unaware that I hadn't finished that off, because I didn't feel like I was. I don't remember thinking I'm missing something here. Right? Magnus is dead.
Just the story.
It's all fine. You know.
Goldbug's probably. I mean, Goldbug appears in the next issue, doesn't he?
He does.
Alive. So you're like, oh well, he sorted it out.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, must have happened off panel. Yeah.
This is like when Jason only saw the first 2 Star Wars movies, and then he found out 30 years later there's a Return of the Jedi.
What? They come back.
I mean, wait a minute. You know?
I think your brain should be studied, Jason.
I think this is true. I agree. Absolutely.
You've just said what no one else on this podcast was. What we're all thinking.
We all think, even me.
In a wonderful way is, of course, what I meant. You know,
they're like Galvatron being crazy, but like a nice version. You know?
A naive, nice version. Yeah, brilliant.
But part 9 then it's not a great finale.
No.
He says controversially, but again, there's something intriguing about this. So for the uninitiated, it's credited to Furman, the script, Jeff Anderson as the artist, and then an inker who I don't think did any other inks for any other UK story, and we only know his surname, which is Harwood. Oh yeah, maybe it's that not. No, I can't think of him inking anything else. Now this is not conspiratorial because none of the annual stories did this, but the colorist isn't credited and the letterer isn't credited. The lettering's really bad, to the point where for me it detracts from the story. I don't know who did it, but it's none of the usual crew.
No.
It's not a professional letterer, or it's somebody being given a tryout. It's not, as I said, inked by anybody that's familiar with the source material. And I don't know whether Jeff Anderson was having a bad day or not, but there's something. It's a rush job, and
it looks rushed. I think so.
It's a really odd, and now I hold Furman up very highly, but even to me it feels like it's a first draft of Furman's script. I mean, I would even say it feels as if it's someone trying to write like Simon Furman. There's something quite uncanny about it. I'm not saying it's
no,
it's not bad as a but considering what it needs to be.
It's perfunctory, I think, is the thing. It's just sort of the fight has no energy to it or anything like that. It's considering the epic battles that we've just had with Magnus and Galvatron and Rodimus and everything, this feels like a real a bit of a damp squib for the ending, I think is the unfortunate thing.
It's an odd issue. I mean, and I think, funnily enough, and I don't want to be too harsh on Jeff Anderson because he can, in other contexts, his art's great. But I think if it was drawn and inked and lettered by other people, if that was the extent of the difference, and the script was the same, and obviously the plot was the same, I don't think it would disappoint. But it's just, I think it's got that uncanny valley. It doesn't feel like it comes from the same stable as all the other stuff.
Exactly.
See,
it doesn't fit.
Now you know where I was coming from the cartoon to the book.
Yeah, totally.
Finally, I understand you. Yeah.
There we go. My thing with this as a kid, and even to this day, it's always Galvatron's kind of like saliva in the art. And it was kind of this weird thing with this book when I was a kid. It would be like, oh,
well, yeah,
it's too human.
Totally. The inside of Ultra Magnus's mouth as well.
That's an Anderson thing, isn't it? That's an Anderson trademark. But yeah,
but you know what? I'm saying I didn't read the annual until now. But look, final panel. I didn't have to. because Goldbug is the only one left alive, right? So didn't miss anything, right? I jumped
That's
straight
true.
to, and that was like, I just filled in the blank.
Did you not wonder why they were encased in molten rock later on in the comic?
I know. My memory's always been bad, so I've just completely forgot.
He'd been to school since then and had tea and stuff. And,
exactly. Started drinking coffee. Who knows what was going on? Exactly.
Yeah, it is a weird story. It does very much feels like an epilogue, if anything. It's sort of strange. It doesn't feel like a sort of necessary part of the action. It sort of feels like all the energy's gone out with the previous issue with 120, and then this is sort of like, even Magnus with his whole, I'm so tired, I want to go to sleep, and it's kind of like, oh great, cool.
It's an issue for us now as we get older.
I think what's really strange is that, and I know, James, I know you heard this, was that obviously when we had Simon on and he was talking about Target 2006, and he described actually the last issue of that, the kind of conclusion, as something that he wasn't particularly proud of, and that he felt that he'd sort of fluffed the ending a little bit. And I think you were sort of a bit aghast with that assertion, weren't you?
I was. We must have talked about this.
We have talked about it, yeah.
Yeah. No, I listened to the episode, and I was like, Simon, no! What? No, don't say this!
Did you flip a table?
You're wrong! I did. I went full prowl. Yeah. I was like shaking my fist like some modern day Canute at the. And I was like, no, because it's okay. Here's next time I see someone, I'll say to him, listen, it's a really clever way of quote unquote defeating a character you've established as unbeatable. He doesn't get beaten. It's incredible. They don't win. In the sense they don't beat him. He decides to go, and to invoke parallel universe theory as the means of making him think that is a really sophisticated device for So sorry, Dad. Professional dad. We disagree on that one. Be kinder to yourself.
It's funny because I think as a finale, it's much more satisfying than what we get here. And so of the two, just sort of going, oh, well, they get encased in lava, actually. So that's sort of the end of it, is kind of, I don't know, it just runs out of steam a little bit for me.
Yeah, it's, we hadn't really, I mean, Magnus's defeatist attitude at the beginning kind of makes sense, but it's not been, signposted prior to that. I mean, you clearly need some, it's Marvel 101. You need some character dilemma to overcome. I get that. But I think, I don't want to place the blame too much at the feet of the artists, but I think it just visually, it just doesn't. And certainly letters wise, it just feels rushed and knocked off. And that's not the norm. That's a testament to the high quality of the normal stuff. It just feels, pales in comparison. But so a strange note to end on. And actually, I mean, depending on your comic literacy, you'll see the Thing blow up and the two characters pronounced dead, and you'll either go, well, yeah, till next time, or you'll go, oh my God, that's a really bleak ending. They're both dead.
And Goldbug's just like, oh well,
just saunters off. Like, all right.
Now where's the mechanic?
This is a funny one.
It's like he's walking off to meet his mates at the pub.
He's got a little saunter about him.
The whole episode, he's got this he's got his hip shake going on.
He does, doesn't he?
It's
so funny.
You stupid, sexy Goldbug.
It's not one of my favorite annual stories, and I do want to say actually that I was totally wrong with the title of the Megatron Galvatron one before, because it's not Dry Run, because that's the one where he rips Cyclonus's head off, of course. That's what I was thinking, which is also burnt in my brain.
Amazing.
It's Altered Image that I was
Altered
thinking
Image,
of.
Oh, of course, yes.
I got that completely wrong before.
Oh, I thought you were right, because you were talking about the kind of what sets up Altered Image, which is that.
I was, which is also is Dry Run. It feeds one into the other, doesn't it? Of course, but Dry Run is very much burnt into my brain. And again, it's just that panel of Cyclonus, which is Jeff Anderson, actually, isn't it? I think. Yeah, which is really good.
Absolutely. It's got. I can't remember the inker. Actually, there'll be someone listening to this shouting into the air. But it's it's not the usual inker. It's not Baskerville.
Right.
No, and this is it. I think he does. He comes alive with particular collaborators.
Definitely.
But I don't know, something odd was happening behind the scenes, production wise, with that annual. I think I don't know what was
Maybe just not the normal sort of lead time or what have you to get it done. I don't know.
I do wonder actually. And I think again, it was. I mean, Furman was having to juggle a lot. He was writing. Interestingly, for the next annual, he may have done the plots, but the scripts were done by other people.
Right.
So maybe this was
So this was the change.
I think maybe he had just too much to do. But
I'll be honest though, one of the reasons that I didn't pick up the annual, which I do remember, is that I had friends who had the annuals across all the different kind of UK comics that were coming out at that time. And I always remember looking at them at school and just being a bit disappointed by them. I was never that enamored by them. So I was like, and then, were they not like $9.99 as well? That was a lot of money at that time.
$3.99, but same thing. It was expensive.
It was a lot. That's
$9.99.
Inflation, so I just did it for now. That's why.
That would be like £100 in today's money. Exactly,
Maybe it was the text stories that put you off.
Yeah, and even in this annual, was this story not at the latter part of the book as well? So it's not like it was the
87. The annual.
You had Arc Duty was in there too, which was a Furman script again, and
there's a text story with Stylor. I always remember that.
That's right. That's right.
One-page image of Stylor. It's the most he's ever done.
Cool. But
I remember the annuals as being quite memorable, though. Honestly, this has also got "What's in a Name" in there, which is that's
the other one.
Yes.
Okay. That's a really well-known storyline. I mean, that's sort of been introduced, I think, into the sort of fandom mindset almost. This idea that Swoop had a different name at some point. Yeah. It's something that's often referenced.
It's funny, I know about that.
Oh, you do know that one?
I do know that, yeah. So it will have definitely been at school. Someone will have it. I will have flicked through it, not connected that this was the ending of this story arc and just dinged it, because it looked rubbish. I did definitely consume with my eyes in the visuals and all that
you
stuff,
made it.
Right?
You passed judgment.
I did. I absolutely did. This isn't Jeff Senior. I'm done.
Is that why you insist on eye contact?
Oh.
That's what it was down to, exactly.
Right, got you.
Let me look at your £100 book and see. That's not much, cop.
It's rubbish. It's not gold plated.
Rubbish.
£100 in Scottish notes.
A pound.
No, well, you'll have to do an episode on the annuals one day because the next year, not to go too much of a diversion, but the next year's annual, nearly every story is setting up Time Wars. So you've got Altered Image, but you've also got What's in a Name. Was it when Highbrow and Scorponok plotline is advanced as well?
Yeah, that's quite essential because I remember reading Time Wars and thinking, oh, this leads on directly from that because he's stolen the head and what have you, and that's sort of the end of that story,
Yeah, and then they completely didn't. The annual after that, which was the last one with all new stories in it. Those stories hardly fit any continuity at all.
Oh yeah, so
strange.
And actually, the 88 annual, or was it 86? Oh no, it's 86. I'm thinking backwards. 86 is the one for me that I think is really good because it's got Victory, which I loved, and it's got State Games, which is talking about your text stories.
Oh god, yeah, a foundational text in every sense of the word for Transformers. Yeah.
That left a big impression on me. That was really good.
Yeah, I interviewed James Hill for one of the UK classic books, the reprint books, and like a lot of people that worked on Transformers briefly and a long time ago, he was really flattered that anyone still cared.
Wow!
And he sent me the typed script for the Circuit Breaker Christmas special that he'd written. So he did a couple of Christmas stories, and he helped out on Crisis of Command. But obviously, his biggest contribution, as you intimated, is State Games, which is, foundational and transformational, incredibly. And I told him so.
I'm guessing that's the origin of Megatron as a gladiator. No, that's where it comes from. Is that storyline?
Yeah.
So, which is again just one of those little snippets from the UK comic, from this annual, that's just somehow made its way into general fandom lore.
Incredible, isn't it? Yeah, like a little chaos theory, butterfly wing thing happening. Yeah, really. Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah. So,
so James, I did want to ask then, so obviously for you, going on to become a Transformers comic writer and what have you yourself, what is it specifically then about 113 as a singular issue? I know what you said about your experience of reading it and what have you, but why has it sort of stayed with you and sort of, I suppose, how has it influenced your work that you came to do in later life?
Yeah, so I think it hit hard because I mentioned it briefly before, but I'll kind of to reiterate. Like I didn't really buy or read many comics at the time. I was, if anything, I was a kind of Whizzer and Chips and kind of Buster kid. And so for your non-British listeners, these are like traditional comic strips. These are funny comics like the Beano. Yeah. But in the UK, you tended to be a kind of DC Thompson kid. You'd get Beano and Dandy, Topper and Weezer, or you were like a Fleetway IPC kid, which was Buster and Whizzer and Chips and Whoopi. And I was kind of getting into them. I didn't read 2000 AD because that was scary. That was big boys comics. You didn't really go there. But so Transformers just hit at the right spot, hit at the right moment, and scratch the right itch.
Yeah.
It did. I can't overstate the fortuitousness, if that's a word, of it being a new story, but a direct sequel to a film that I'd loved. And it's the only time you're going to see a sequel to a animated Transformers product in those days. Death's was there, and you had the best writer and the best artist, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Going great guns,
Yeah.
And it gains in stature for me because you always remember your first time, and if it hadn't been that gateway, I probably would have whatever issue I picked up, I'd have stuck around. But it all started there for me. So yeah, I think it's it's just extra special. And when I one of my kind of bucket list things when Jeff did covers for Lost Light near the end, I had him do it was a retail incentive cover, and it's Rung in that Rodimus Prime pose, from 113. And I thought, like I said earlier, given that Rung was his design was informed greatly by Death's Head and the bartender, it seemed it needed to be done. Yeah. So thanks, Jeff.
That's superb.
And 113 was, when it came to numerical references in the comic, I grew up on the X-Files, and there was always, well, not always, but often there was 1013 was the recurring number in the X-Files, because that was the production company, and that was Mulder's birthday and Chris Carter's birthday as well, I think. So I thought, well, I can either pick a completely random number, or I can do some kind of half-assed Easter egg in there, which people might pick up on. So why not?
Oh, dear. It's so funny, just because of how prolific it is as well. It just pops up
once you tune into it.
Yeah, honestly, as we've been, I was going to say rereading it, but in my case, reading it. As we've been going through it, it's just been hilarious, the number of 113s that pop up at the most random of points.
You'll start groaning in the end. I think actually I may have risked diminishing returns, frankly. I think I don't know, what are you up to in the reread?
We've
roughly?
Just done issue 30, so we've just done the trial of, I forget the name of the story.
Megatron's his name,
Megatron. Oh,
yeah. You'll get used to it.
Friend.
His trial and all of that is
cool.
where we've just got
so you haven't yet reached
comics.
Oh, thank you. But to my mind, the ultimate use of 113 is ahead of you, but not too far ahead.
Okay.
And then I think I may even have tried to wean myself off it after that, because I kind of peaked with the pure distilled indulgence, and then I'm like, and even I feel I've sullied myself now. So I've got to be, I got to go cold turkey.
I can imagine you sitting there typing this, just giggling to yourself as I've done it again.
And then,
brilliant.
Yes, no, I was gonna make an allusion that probably wouldn't have been pre-Watershed wouldn't have been appropriate. But there was
that's okay.
Wow, yeah, that's not me. That's not Liam's job.
Yeah, Liam, I'll leave it to you. But yes, I think I use it less after this particular issue, which
that's cool.
Got you.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to that one. But we're thoroughly enjoying More Than Meets the Eye. I mean, obviously, I
so good.
Can't get enough of it. We were talking, actually, not to blow smoke or what have you, but we were talking about that, and not to get too into it, because of course that's not necessarily the topic for tonight. But just whilst you're here, we got into the whole the trial of Megatron bit, and we were saying how fascinating it was to kind of end the war, as it were, in such a way, And again, as you were saying about sending Galvatron home at the end of Target 2006, this is done, not with a battle, not on the battlefield whatsoever, but through words and through actions and whatever else. And it's really very well done, really subversive, but very Yeah, I don't know, just a very kind of clever way to wrap up that war, I think, and kind of deal with the ramifications of it.
Yeah,
I'm really glad you're enjoying it. I remember I was really excited about the trial. And
some of the best comics ever.
Those
sections, I just adore them.
It was. I know we're not talking about. This is for a different discussion, but the trick was to kind of interweave the past trial scenes with Megatron for some reason being co-captain on and to try and so you're thinking all the time, well, how could we possibly go from him pleading guilty to where he is now? And it's always the way with comics. If I could have had triple-sized issues for that three-parter, I would have really leaned into the trial. I would have particularly, if the real estate was there, to have had several splash pages really leaning into just how many spectators there are witnessing. Because from my perspective, that would be the single biggest thing that's ever happened in their universe. In that sense, is this genocidal tyrant finally being put on the stand. Everybody would have been there. So it was a great fun.
That came up in our conversation, didn't it? Of just because that could be issue after issue after issue. You're exploring all of the stuff that Megatron did and how it affected millions and millions of lives as well.
Yeah, you could have a 6-parter Trial of Megatron miniseries would have been good fun to write.
There are so many moments in it, but I think my favorite is his Starscream being so close to getting what he actually wants, and then
he overplays his hand. Yeah, he does.
And it's like that is Starscream. It's such a nutshell.
And I never got to write Starscream outside of that scene and a couple of scenes in Death of Optimus Prime. So it was it was like. From my perspective, it was like a guest character on a TV show. It's like a special guest appearance by Starscream. And I was like, right, okay, let's have some fun with him.
Brilliant. It's perfectly pitched because it's just for me the panel where Megatron is just stony silent, but on his face that he's like, no, I'm not having this.
I'm not having that. Exactly right. Okay. A line has been crossed,
Yeah, you've pushed it too far now.
He then goes on to do everything just to spite Starscream.
Well, and hopefully what came across is, he is, and again, we won't look to the end of the storyline, but the idea is that he's in redemptive mode. He feels what he's done is wrong, and yet the one thing that he can't rise above is Starscream's needling. Essentially, Starscream gets too greedy with that kind of what amounts to a kind of eulogy, perverse eulogy. So backfires.
No, it's pitched perfectly, honestly. And it's funny you mentioned about the time jump thing, because I must admit, on first read, when I saw 6 months later, I nearly had that moment of, do you know what I mean? So I was like,
you didn't mention that in the episode.
Just because I was like, are we not going to deal with the fallout of what
Can you
just
imagine?
happened? Like, are we going to just time jump and that's it? And then when you went back, I was like, all is forgiven, James. I shouldn't have doubted at all.
Yeah, that would have been horrible to do to people. But speaking of time jumps, and I meant to mention it earlier when we were talking about Wanted and present day Magnus and future Magnus and how come they don't remember, and that must have seeped into my brain because when I came to write Elegant Chaos, which is lies ahead of you, I wanted to make sure every single time travel rule made sense. It had, and oh dear, nearly went mad, but because I wanted to have my cake and eat it. I believe in the rule was that everything. Yes, you can time travel, but the timeline has already accommodated every incident of time travel.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so if that rule applied to TFUK's universe, the moment Galvatron, they would have been expecting Galvatron to go back in time in 2007.
Yeah.
But so that's fine as a kind of, it's a readily understandable rule. The trouble is then you've got to, how am I going to invent? What are the stakes then? What's the threat if
people can't die.
If everything's set out,
So I hopefully found a way around that. You'll come to that when you come to read Elegant Chaos, but
I look forward to it.
Yeah, so
I did love Elegant Chaos. It's great. Another great story. All of that book is great, James. I just keep telling you that it's amazing.
It is amazing.
The greatest comic.
Beautiful, right?
We should get you back on again soon, James, to kind of do. I know we've done a couple of kind of summaries of where we're up to and what have you, but we've had some we've just done Dark Cybertron and everything, of course, as well, which was interesting, and so it'd be really kind of good to get your take on it and kind of get into detail.
Love to get your thoughts on how that whole
on Dark
Craziness.
Cybertron.
Went down, like that's how that all came together.
Right, definitely doing that one there, right?
See? So,
yeah. It's a very different episode.
Trigger made a face. Sorry, that's a reference to a Stuart Lee act there, yes. It was an interesting assignment for me and John, and particularly from, not to go into it too much, but from my perspective, they spent a year getting further away. I mean, the last thing you want on a quest story is to go back home.
Right.
So that was that was one of the challenges. But anyway, we used, as you've now read, we used magic to get them back to where they were. So
right. It worked out.
Or it's a dream.
Out.
Yeah, it's a dream. Yeah. Dream.
Exactly.
But no, I'd love to come back and to the listeners out there, you have been spared my agonizing attempts to set up the microphone and the headphones, etc. And
we still started earlier than we normally do.
We did.
So
To be fair, we did really well.
Your Triple Takeover heroes have got very exacting audio standards, which you'll know because you it's like listening to, I don't know, a Radio 4 drama where they're just pouring honey. It's that's how good. But it's
the
not,
Archers of Transformers.
The Arch, yeah. But there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and they've got to deal with these inept guests that guests to whom they've provided a microphone.
Well, I was going to say, thus far, you're the only guest that we've had a mic sent to. That we couriered you a mic or what have you. So
you should have sent me a helper.
Next time.
I offered Liam. I said Liam should
we'll send
Maz
next time.
Yeah, I can't look after Liam. He'll go miss. He'll run off. He'll go missing.
I'll be very
He'll be in the closest bar. Closest bar. That's
and
where
of the two of you, Sixo, since he's a lot younger than you, I can't really.
Exactly.
You can't be my responsible adult.
Exactly.
Oh God! Don't make me the responsible one. That'd be terrible. Yeah. Oh no! Yeah, that'd be awful.
Just get some pot noodles in, and Liam would be fine. Honestly, he'd sort himself out.
That's true. Yeah,
and say we can get the Starcom out, Liam, so we'll be all right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
James, I actually found a suitcase of more Starcom the other day, just spares.
You just got suitcases of toys, don't you? That's what it is.
Somebody gave it to me when I went to a wrestling event once. Someone just turned up and gave me a suitcase full of Starcom and Dino Rider stuff.
To a wrestling event?
At the arena, I went to watch WWE and
some guy was giving out Dino Raiders and Starcom, is it?
It's like, how does he do this?
My brother-in-law picked me up for a lift and he just handed me a suitcase. He's like, oh, someone I know was chucking all this stuff in the bin. And I was like, I know a guy like that. It's just this really old suitcase just full of old Starcom stuff and Dino Riders. I was like, yep, that sounds like
And he says he doesn't get free toys.
Well, this is it. The first time I met Liam in person, we knew each other from the internet, but the first time we actually met face to face was at TF Nation. I think it was in 2017, and I remember meeting you finally, and you were already drunk, Liam, because I
was very drunk. Yeah.
You had a Coke bottle which had a lot of rum in it as well, I think, that you were carrying around.
It was 10 a.m.
And it was Dr. Pepper.
Oh, was it Dr. Pepper? So, sorry for not getting the law right. Sorry. But and you were holding
flavors combined.
Yeah, exactly. You were holding a white plastic bag, and I think I said to you, "What's in there?" And you went, sort of slurring your words a little bit. You just said, "I don't know. Someone's just handed it to me," and you kind of opened it. And it was just full of Unicron trilogy toys. You had like Armada Optimus in there and all kinds of stuff. I don't even know what it is. It was just,
I like the way you make me sound like carrying around this pop bottle full of rum and a carry bag, like I am the Rab C. Nesbitt of
TFH. Not my words.
Yeah, just string vest on.
That was exactly
exactly what it was like. Headband,
string vest and a pint,
suit jacket.
That can be next TFN. That's what you're going as, right? That get up. Brilliant.
But yes, I will happily, when you want me back, we can talk More Than Meets the Eye season 2 or whatever, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
And your book.
Yes.
Talk about your book.
Yeah. That I would love to get you back.
We want to talk about that.
I am loving it.
Oh, good.
So
excellent.
Good. So good.
So this is
I will be loving it.
You'll be loving it. I need to get you your copy. But so Generation Mechs, it's both a detailed account of the kind of rise and fall of G1, so from kind of 83 through to the early 90s. But the bulk of the book is a description, oral history, critical history of the rise of the first wave of Transformers fandom. So how we ended up. Well, there's a line to be drawn between the things described in the book and this podcast and what you're doing now. It's all part of the same story.
That's a nice way to look at it, definitely.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant.
I am just now starting on it, I'm afraid to say. I've had such a busy run of it since TF Nation, but I cannot wait to get cracking proper. And you've made a little box fort for yourself behind you there, James. I see.
I have. So what I normally do when I release a book, I'll make a few copies for the conventions, and then I take orders and I order that many books. But because this is a very hefty, deluxe, hardback, glossy edition, it's expensive to make and publish. So I thought, well, I'll take a guess as to what the demand is, and I'll get those books printed because it's cheaper for everybody. And they're behind me now. And as soon as we can sort out the tariffs that are causing problems in sending goods to America, then I will start soliciting orders
on the way. It's the bit that I think nobody ever thinks about, isn't it? The fact that you've actually got to house all these books in your house, kind of sit on a mountain of them.
The cats like it. It's like a little cat fort.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It looks fun.
I had to set up as a publisher for Generation Mechs. So
wow.
Empurata Books is a bona fide publisher.
Dude.
That's brilliant.
Yes, that's right.
I'm amazed you didn't call it 113 books.
Yeah.
Oh God!
No, he's not doing that now.
Yeah, I got that out of my system. I thought
Printed 113 copies.
Recall them all.
That Blackadder episode, Blackadder the Third, when the dictionary's being written, and he realizes he's missed a word out. Thanks, Liam. That's how I feel now.
Oh, dear. Well, it's clearly popular because you had, I think it was about an hour and a half queue at TF Nation at one point. There was,
I took a photo of it with one of my friends at the other end. Yeah,
I made the joke that it's almost like Alton Towers, where you join the line and they have those little signs that say at this point it's going to be 90 minutes before you can, get to the front. It was really
busy. It was good. I mean, I'm sorry people had to wait, but I don't know what. It's always pretty busy. But this was this was something else, and I don't know. Maybe it's the new generation out there.
Well,
the
I think
kids.
it was.
Kids.
It was. That's what Billy was saying, wasn't it? It was a different generation coming this year, and they've obviously they've all consumed your
generation
work.
Two.
So that's it. Yeah,
that's
great.
And that's what we need to keep it all going.
We're all turning to dust now as we keep talking.
About it, so, absolutely. Yeah. No, get the kids involved. That's a whole different conversation. How we get the young'uns back into get into it.
Yeah, definitely.
But making More Than Meets the Eye available digitally, legitimately, would be a good start.
That would be a good start. Yeah,
that would be nice. Come on, Skybound.
Yeah,
you did all right on the G1 compendium stuff.
Yeah, so, imagine that. That'd be so good.
That would be good. I am hopeful.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Brilliant. All right. Well, James, thank you so much.
We
really appreciate it.
And amazing.
It's been amazing.
What an incredible 113 episode. Just felt right. And I'm so pleased that we did this. And of course, thanks again to Rob75 for the suggestion as well. So it could have never been, if you'd not spoken.
It's all down to you, Rob75.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Well, lads, I will let you get on with other matters. Yeah. And speak to you soon. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Thanks, James. I'll sort out with the book with you after this.
Yeah, okay. All right, bye.
Bye.
Cheers. See ya.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Right, we're going to do that part of the pod where we talk about our sponsor, and that is, as ever, tfsource.com, so you can go and check them out for all your Transformers needs. And as per, we've had a look at what they've got in stock and available for pre-order right now, and we've chosen one item that we're going to talk about a little bit. And for tonight, Matthew, that is going to be DK74 DNA Design Upgrade Kit for Age of the Primes Megatronus. So it's a DNA design upgrade kit for the Fallen, basically, isn't it?
Upgrade might be a strong one.
Right.
So
side grade?
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
I kind of like it, but I don't know. It's like the flamey sword new, as in the flamey sword.
Yeah, the flamey sword. Well, the whole sword is new.
All right, I quite like that. That's
sort
cool.
of chainsaw thing.
I think what's throwing me with this. So I like the DNA kits. I have quite a few of them for different things. I have the one that came from Vector Prime recently, which is
they're
made
often
Vector Prime
really good.
Loads better. I've got the one for Dino King on the way, and also the Nemesis Prime, which I drunk bought and didn't know I was getting.
Oops,
So
always the
that's
best.
nice. But when I saw this today, I was waiting for them to do one because I really like this toy, but it's not the Dreamwave version of the character.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the details, but the shape is quite different. But I was like, it's missing like one of the most important features of the toy, and it's the tank treads that sit behind his shoulders.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, if you look at the Dreamwave design, that's a really important part of the design because they're very prominent.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, someone will do an upgrade kit just to give him that little extra bit for the silhouette. It doesn't have to be tank treads, but they haven't done it either. They really
It's just
haven't.
accessories.
But they've created these ginormous, like,
huge shoulders.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the 80 shoulder pads, that are going on. There's just bigger versions of what exists on the toy already, isn't it? So,
It's a really odd choice. I think they've tried to sort of do it to get the feeling of the kind of accentuated comic art almost. There's exaggerated proportions, but I'm just not sure it works.
Yeah, because the original version of the Fallen, he's very blocky and square. This version isn't so much. If you like, look at the chest, it's more of a curve to it.
Yeah.
It has a lot of those details. But it's funny because with stuff like this, when they get an upgrade kit, particularly for these sort of prices, I want it to add the things that's missing more than anything else. I think that's what I look for in an upgrade kit, for it to improve the toy, not necessarily to put its own spin on it. But I get that there are people out there who do that. It's like, because I was like looking at the chainsaw blade and like, it's cool, but it doesn't scream the Fallen to me.
No,
but
same.
Right, okay. Yeah.
the shoulders in tank mode, the way they flip out like that, that actually makes the tank mode feel a bit more like the Dreamwave style Fallen.
Agreed,
So
yeah.
we get that.
I do like that with the kind of missile rack things, the sort of little red nubs or whatever. That does look really cool.
Yeah, I see that. Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, it just feels like it's not quite hitting the mark. It's kind of cool in its way, but just not landing.
Yeah, it's the big shoulder blades. Also, that's probably that type of plastic which is not the best for longevity as well.
What, the flames?
Yeah.
Yeah, the flames are a weird one. There's been lots of talk about the plastic on the actual figure itself, the kind of the fire pieces.
Yeah.
They go sticky.
They go a bit sticky, and people are saying that actually it not only do they sort of degrade, but people are saying that actually it degrades the plastic, the sort of hard plastic around them as well. So actually, if you leave them on the figure, then over time it might become a bit of a problem. And so people have been, a little bit, perhaps understandably, a little bit critical of that. I don't know what this is like, but it does look like a similar type of plastic, but just massive, right? Like they've just gone well over the top with these shoulder flames, especially. It's like really, really crazy.
Yeah. It's like that bit in Weird Science where they're creating the girl and
is it? What? Hang on. Walk us through the thought process here.
Are they setting her on fire?
Yeah, I mean,
they're just making everything bigger because they're teenage boys, And so the designers here have just made the flames. They're just like, the flames need to be bigger, so they've just pushed the mouse up to make it bigger. That's what they've done.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, sure. Not at all the comparison I thought you were going to make, but why not?
Make it all bigger. Yeah. That's what they've done.
Let's go with that. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. To me, a lot of this stuff. I think the worst thing about upgrade kits sometimes is that they feel a bit unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? Like they've sort of
like this one.
Yeah,
tacked on though, but it's tacked on by their nature, isn't it? Because that's essentially what they are.
Yeah,
they are bits being added, but some of the best ones really improve toys. I agree.
Like
the Vector Prime one, and there are so many over the years where I've looked at it and gone and picked them up because I have a real soft spot for upgrade kits for that reason. Like if you think all the way back to the early Fans Project Cliff Jumper. Like they gave the classics Cliff Jumper the bumper and just improved it.
Yeah, that was
that
cool.
Sort of stuff. The City Commander, all those sort of things, and you think of some of the great upgrade kits. They're kind of doing a bit of a toy hacks thing where they're kind of going off in their own direction now. So I mean, it's kind of cool, and it's like that's cool, but at the same time, I kind of want the bits that make it look like.
I think that's exactly the sort of distinction, and you're right to make it in that I don't need fantasy weird additional chainsaws and things like that. I just the best upgrade kits are the ones that sort of give you the things that you would have wanted in the first place, or they correct something about the toy that actually felt like it was lacking in some way. Do you know what I mean? That, you know,
fix it, stability upgrades and things like that. You know?
Exactly. Like the one I always think of from recent, like Legacy Age of the Primes memory is like the Armada Megatron, you know, with the shoulder pylons not moving in the kind of way that you would expect, you know, and some solutions around that, for example, that kind of stuff. Or like Legacy Point Blank doesn't have his spoiler, you know, and there's a couple of kits for that.
I have one. It's great. Makes all the difference. And there's also recently DNA did one for the studio series Transformers 1 Optimus and Megatron, and it gives Megatron his proper gun and some extra articulation bits. And
that makes sense.
Prime gives him new forearms where the fist can fold in. And I'm like, it's a very small thing. It doesn't bother me, but I'm like, that I kind of get that. I'm on board with that more than kind of like, here's a chainsaw for a dude.
Oh, did you see? This is another set, but they've actually done purple flamey chainsaws. As well. So
have they?
Yeah, I like that one more. I actually,
quite cool.
I was looking at that a minute ago. Because you can get the chainsaws separately, and like the purple one somehow.
Yeah, and then it becomes
like,
kind of tank tread, like you were talking about in a way, doesn't it? Kind of fix it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I actually prefer that as well.
The purple and orange looks good together in my mind, and that's like a lot. That's a really affordable price. That's like $11. That's really good.
The upgrades really improved the tank mode, because the tank mode was fine, but this kind of makes it look like a mad Cybertronian god tank.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, it's a really good figure all round anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I do really like it. But yeah, there's a bit of a few strange choices.
Feet fillers. People are obsessed with feet fillers. I'm like,
like on the soles?
Yeah, just look at those, man. They're posing their figures like, look at me, let me just look at underneath his toes.
Yeah, that is a bit of a weird one.
He's got athlete's foot. I need to cover that up.
It's what I do, though, whenever I meet people. It's like, can I see the bottom of your foot first, please?
Do you need some foot fillers?
The Decepticon mask is a bit of a weird one as well, because I guess that's trying to make it like Transformers 1 Megatronus.
Yeah.
I presume that's what that's about.
Sort of aligned continuity, isn't it? This whole Decepticon face for Megatron and Megatronus, even.
Yeah, I don't think that's needed. I'm not really.
I really think that's a bit superfluous, honestly.
It's
and the
not
head sculpt
the
on the toy is already so
exactly
good.
not the guy.
Yeah.
Done in. The original head sculpt on this toy is one of the greats of recent years.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But it reminds me of the furnace from Home Alone all the time.
It really does, doesn't it?
Definitely does, yeah.
Or a Mortal Kombat Ninja.
Yeah.
Totally.
Those sort of two things smushed together, if anything. I think.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, bit of a weird one, but hey, it's there, and no doubt some people are going to be into it. You know, flaming chainsaws.
Sold it so well.
Yeah,
we really have, haven't we? Yeah,
totally.
We really do that on these sponsor segments. But you know, if you want it, it's there. You can go and get it. It's a pretty good price actually for the chainsaws alone. As you said, Jace, it's just $11, which
good.
I think, I can see a lot of people being tempted.
Get
with
it from TF Source.
That's a really good price.
Yeah.
The purple one looks amazing.
It does.
Doesn't even have to go with the Fallen, does it? It could just go with any toy.
Yeah, that one.
Your Studio Series Megatron or whatever. You know, who cares? Go
or
nuts.
Goldbug. You know, probably not Goldbug.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Goldbug
sounds like weird science to me.
It does.
Give it to Rung.
Yeah. Anyway, you could go and check out all these things at tfsource.com. They're there for all your Transformers needs, so go and give them a look. It's tfsource.com.
We now return to the Transformers.
Well, that's going to do it for Mr. James Roberts, who is always a delight. I don't know how many times he's been on the pod now, actually. Maybe 3 or 4? It's been a few.
I think it's 4,
certainly.
Isn't it? I think I've done a couple with him, and I think you and Guys and Maz did a couple with him as well.
Well, it was weirdly only 13 episodes ago that we had him on as a guest, so he must be, I think, back to back, our most frequent
He's great.
guest.
He's so good to have on, and it's like, as I said, reading his book at the moment, and then just his level of knowledge and his enthusiasm,
it's really good.
It's great. Yeah. It's so good.
He's an absolute delight to talk to as well, and just so funny.
Yeah,
so generous with his time, and I really hope he does come back for more, because every single one, it's like you can sit back and just listen to him talk, because it's like being at a TFM panel. You know, it's just so interesting. And it's hilarious as well.
That's why when you guys have read Generation Max and we can chat to him about that, that'll be a goodie. It's like,
I welcome it. But anyway, if you want to get more of this and hear more James, actually, because we do have some James on there as well, you can get on our Patreon, because we do have a rather wonderful Patreon at patreon.com/Triple Takeover, as you might expect. And yes, several of James's appearances are on there as well. And indeed, Mr. Nick Roche as well, who also features on there. We've had him on for a couple of bits on there. And absolutely go and give it a look, because we've got bonus recordings, we've got fortnightly mini-sodes, of which there are now like 110 or something, 100 and nearly up there, I think, 107, something like that.
Wow,
ish. And loads of mini-series as well, another set of fortnightly content where we talk about ongoing topics, including More Than Meets the Eye, which was where we've had James on, discussing that comic, which we were talking about earlier. And it's all happening. And of course, we also have a very popping Discord, which Liam always says is his big thing that he talks about all the time.
Absolutely, popping off.
Yeah, you always say that.
Pop your collar.
Yeah,
that's a very different thing.
Yeah. Once you pop, you can't stop.
That's you often say that as well. I know.
Don't
Registered
push me.
Copyright.
Push a push pop.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you remember that advert?
Yeah, I do.
Don't push me. Push a push pop.
They were quite. I quite like those sweeties. They were quite fun.
Oh, push pops were the best.
But they went for ages. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And worth
like
mentioning,
a Chupa Chups, but as lipstick.
Sure. Okay.
Sticky lipstick.
Was that what was worth mentioning? I don't know. What was worth mentioning is that we mentioned it right at the start, right? That you can get episode polls as well, where you can vote for upcoming topics for new episodes, things like this. And actually, you can also ask us questions. So that's obviously what we're going to come to now. But what I did want to say is that all of these things can now be done on our Discord. And you can actually, to do the questions, you can sign up at the bottom tier, just £1 a month, to ask us a question that you may hear
Fill my
answered.
Mailbag.
All right,
well, don't do that. Sign up at the top tier, because
signing up at the top.
But then you get so much content. One of our patrons asked about that the other day, and they didn't realize how much other content there was above where they were, and they were suddenly like,
Weekly.
"Oh my goodness!"
Weekly. Yeah. Well, genuinely, I think we worked it out, didn't we? And we said that you could sit and listen to us for, like, if you signed up at the top tier now, there's a week's worth of content on the Patreon, just sat there, you know, like a whole physical week, solid week, no sleep.
Which when you listen to it normally would be like, well, for me, I'm still going.
I mean, that's a lot of dog walks, isn't it? That's a lot of, you know,
it's a lot of plane flights for me. That is,
it's a lot of bubble baths.
We should do a poll of where people listen. No, let's not do that. Actually, that's
right?
fine.
Yeah, well, we could do. Yeah. We could do. Yeah. I think I'd rather not know.
I don't want to know.
But they can ask us questions. They can vote in episode polls. But tonight, your mailbag is a bit stuffed, isn't it, Jace?
It is. I'm going to rustle in there. I feel like I need a sound effects for rustling in amongst, papers and all that kind of stuff. We can put that in. So our first one tonight, gentlemen, Siege Maximo, one of the best Patreon usernames we have. Post G1, what do you believe has been peak year for the Transformers? Either objectively brand-wise or just your general opinion on product and media from that year. And yes, I said the Transformers. That's for you, Liam.
I'm going to go with, off the top of my head, I'm going to aim for 2014. Ooh. I'm going to assume it's 2014 because it's the Thrilling 30 year, which was when More Than Meets the Eye / Lost Light was in its absolute pomp. We were getting toys of those characters. And it was just like this wondrous time. It's like one of my favorite years, kind of eras, that sort of the best comic, the interesting toys are based on comic designs. So
that's a really good shout.
It's actually a really good shout.
Yeah.
Sixo, what about you?
This is such a hard question. I think a bit like you, Liam, I kind of got to go off the top of my head because I think there's been tons of great years. Actually, I think there's been a few lulls here or there, but there's never been like a major bad point. It's sort of in the last however many years, really, like since Transformers has sort of come back in the 2000s, it's stayed pretty consistently. There's always been something, hasn't there, to get you going. A year that really does spring out to me in the sort of, it's not modern by any means, but it's post G1, is 2003. And I say that because of several reasons. Number one, smash hit
Armada?
comic. Well, yeah, Armada I was going to mention. So number one smash hit comic with Dreamwave, so like topping the sales charts, in a way that Skybound is doing again now, or has been doing, I should say. But this is, bigger than DC and Marvel at this stage, and everything else, which is big for the brand, like huge. Number two, Armada flying off the shelves, like big time. Do you know what I mean? And people talk about like the live action movie kind of bringing Transformers back, and not really, because it was a steady, very steep incline up to the movie, but it was already big time. It's just like the movie just took it. Someone said, I'm trying to think who it was, but someone said it's like the equivalent of going from being a millionaire to a billionaire. The effect of the movie. It's like you're already rich, but you just get that much richer. Not that I condone billionaires, because I think the whole concept of it is frankly disgusting. But that's by the by.
Wow.
That's just I do. But more on that aside, it's awful. But that's just me.
So you don't want to be a billionaire so effing bad. Like that song.
Is that a reference to something?
Is that not the song by? Was it Bruno Mars?
It's definitely going to be a Bruno. It's got to be a Bruno Mars.
Is it Bruno Mars?
Because I want to be a billionaire. So
sounds like a Bruno Mars, but written by Mark Ronson.
You've really sold it to me, Liam. I'm going to go and look it up now.
There you go. Check
That is a good choice. I appreciate.
The other thing I was going to say, of course, is that yes, you had Unicron Trilogy flying off the shelves, but you also had Masterpiece, MP1, Convoy, which was game changer of a toy, absolute game changer, and you had Vinyl Tech coming in as well with like smokescreen, an alternator smokescreen and everything as well. So in my mind, just a period, and you had all the reissues coming in. So you had Transformers Collection in full swing at that point, commemorative series. So you had even stuff like Transformers Micromaster as well. So you were getting like reissues. I was going to say
that's this sort of time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Takara were reissuing stuff. Hasbro were reissuing stuff. You were getting epic new toys with the beginning of the Unicron trilogy. You were getting Masterpiece. It was just, really objectively.
Big game changer, wasn't it?
Unicron's
incredible
coming down the line.
Yeah, exactly. An amazing year for the brand.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal choice. Yeah.
It is.
Concur.
Post G1, this is allowed. I'm going to say now, 2024-25.
Wow,
because we're getting Missing Link, which I am loving. But you mentioned it already, Skybound, which we've had a good chat on that. And that is absolutely bringing Transformers to a whole other generation of readers and winning awards, which is lovely to see. We've got a whole kids line coming through, which is doing some really interesting stuff, bringing like kind of prototype painted versions of like your Scorponok that's bring into the line. We're getting figures that we never expected to see as kind of everyday releases that are coming out of retail as well. And we are convention rich at the moment as well. We got like biggest European convention is in Birmingham in the UK each year. We had a phenomenal amount of people coming out to this year. There just seems to be a really amazing vibe around Transformers at the moment for me as well.
I love this so much, Jason, because this is such a you answer, because it's like, when people are asked like, what is the greatest day in history? Jason's basically going today. And that's fantastic. That's a really, really
nice.
lovely thing.
Yeah. It's a great question. It's really good. And we are, and we're lucky, aren't we, that we're in a fandom and a collector world where all three of us pick these and we're all like, yeah, that's so true. But it's, it's great.
There's no dispute either. Like you can see the logic of all three answers. Even though they're all kind of 10 years apart or what have you, they all kind of make sense in their own different ways. Yeah. So the today point does leave me feeling quite hopeful for the future. Like, the point about that younger audience coming in and everything as well. The 20-year-olds and things like this that are getting into it. It leaves me feeling like maybe it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot to love there. Totally. Siege Maximal, brilliant question. Thank you so much. Next one, we have Jay Turnham. He is very active on our Discord. Appreciate that. What's your biggest regret or mistake encountered over the lifetime of the pod? And what would your most important piece of advice be for anyone starting their own podcast, regardless of subject?
Oh my God.
I have no regrets, Jay Turnham. everything that goes out on this pod
Oh my God.
has made me realize a lot about myself, and I'm every day learning, which I appreciate. So in fact, I have some news. I was coming home from my partner's birthday gathering with my family the other day, and we were talking about a wedding we're going to, which is a Halloween wedding at the end of the month. And I was like,
amazing.
We could go I could go as Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, and you could go as one of the nurses. And she was like, and she's like, yeah, but isn't Pyramid Head like really hench? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, right. And it's like, but you said I was hench. And she said, well, you're not Pyramid Head hench. And I was like, what? And she's like, you're hench for you. And I was like, you mean, what do you mean? Do you mean I've just got fat? I couldn't believe it.
Your world's been shattered.
My world has been shattered. So there I was thinking I could rock Pyramid Head, but I know. The reality is out. So gutted. I've not talked to her for days.
Oh my God.
So there you go. Every day is a learning.
I'm gonna die.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
She brought you smashing back down to reality.
It did.
there.
I'm not as hench as Pyramid Head. Anyway, he's really hench, that guy, though. Yeah, you know what? James Roberts could do Pyramid Heads.
He is pretty hench.
Yeah.
He is pretty hench.
But yeah, biggest regret or mistake encountered over the lifetime of the pod. So for you guys, you got to drag some memories back here.
Man.
Is there anything you can think of?
Liam, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of actual regrets. I don't think we've had any because everything's kind of. Oh no, I don't want to say it out loud because everything will then start going wrong. But as I'm clutching wood, everything seems to have gone.
Yeah, it feels like we're going to jinx it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I suppose we could say we miss Maz terribly. Let's be honest, right? But that's not a regret or a mistake or anything. That's just life, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. I think maybe my only regret is I think in the early episodes I didn't talk very much, and I think we should have talked more in the first few.
You do talk more now, definitely.
Oh yeah, now I can't shut up. But
that's great. When we get you onto comics as well, that's the best. I love it.
That's actually my biggest regret, that Liam talks more now.
The biggest mistake was getting him a microphone.
Yeah, exactly. It's much better when
my biggest regret was asking Sixo to take part in a podcast with me.
Exactly.
It's not at all because he does everything, so it's the best thing I've ever done.
There is no podcast without Sixo, let's be honest.
I think my biggest regret is probably not plugging my microphone in for a certain Titans Return episode. I don't know.
No.
I was going to say that as a regret, but you redeemed it.
We brought it.
You saved it. You did.
We saved it.
True.
It came back. Yeah.
I know.
I think there have been one or two times where we've messed up recording, and that's always frustrating. And that would probably be my biggest. You said about advice or what have you. That would be my only real advice. It's not like we're that slick at what we do, but we do try.
Yeah, it's advice on anyone starting their own podcast, regardless of subject.
Yeah,
but I think actually. So what I would say is the subject is the most important bit. Choose something you love. Like the whole, it was Liam, it was you that originally were coming up with this idea of recreating what you guys were doing, and having that passion for something, isn't it? And talk about that and finding
definitely, because it shouldn't be underestimated. I mean, we do this every week, and I think I speak for all of us and say that we do love doing it.
Yeah.
There are definitely times where you have to find the enthusiasm for it, even if it's something that you love. Do you know what I mean? Because doing it weekly is a commitment. And
it's a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot. And there are times where you're tired, or actually, I'm going to be completely honest, there are times where life is a bit stressful or whatever, or, you're having a bad day and you've still got to strap on a smile and go and talk about plastic robots for 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. It definitely has to be something that gets you immediately in the mood of like, yes, I want to do this. And I think we're all lucky that is the case for us.
And you know what? Even when I'm feeling, if I've come to, so recently you guys know that I've come to the podcast, it's been a bit stressful in my life of late, but then when I've done a podcast episode, I come away lighter, and and that's just spending time with friends, right? And that's what's really lovely about it. And that's the important bit.
That's what I was going to say. So to add on to that, my advice would be to anyone doing it, do it with people you genuinely love spending time with. Because doing this at the beginning with you and Maz, it was just so lovely spending time with you guys every day, and now you, Jason, and it's just you've all three of you become three of my favorite people on earth, and it's just like we're all really close friends. I feel at Sixers, and I think it just makes it so cheesy because when you turn up, it's just having a chat with your mates and you have a laugh, and it doesn't feel like work or anything. There are, like you said, there are times where beforehand you're like, oh, I'm knackered, I can't face this. But then, as Jason said, I get the exact same thing. By the time I come off, I'm like buzzing, like really like it's exactly what I needed that day.
It is. Yeah, it's do what you love. That's exactly it.
Yeah, with people you love.
Yes, and make sure you press record.
yeah, definitely.
Good advice. Excellent. You know,
good question, Jay Turnham. Nice one.
It was.
Yeah.
I'd love to know which episode it was where you didn't press record, and it was like about 45, 50 minutes of us doing a whole episode, and then it was like you go, "I'm so sorry." I've just
there's no worse feeling, honestly, than like something that cannot be recreated, and it's just gone. You know, it's lost to time. It is obviously there are worse feelings. I'm not actually nothing
compares
in the history of humankind. You know, this
Can you
is
remember
it.
which was the one we did, and we didn't think it was very good, and so we redid it the next day, and it was brilliant. It turned out to be one of our favourites.
It
was quite early on, wasn't it? It's just one where it was like it was fine, but we all came out and went, didn't quite click. It wasn't great, and then we did it again. We did
redo it. Yeah, I can't remember which episode it was. We did episode 1 twice because we did like a dry run, and then we came back and did like the proper recording.
Yeah,
and the first one, I think instantly there were lots of things about that initial test that we were like, that did not work. You know, just like silly things to do with like mics and all of that kind of stuff, you know, and sound quality and things. But yeah, there was a whole episode that I remember just we literally got to right at the end. And we finished, and we were like, "That was a bit crap, wasn't it?" And we just kind of couldn't get into the.
Just not vibing.
Because we always end up chatting afterwards, like in the Discord or on our own little chat groups. But it just kind of came up afterwards. It was like, it just didn't quite work, wasn't it? And it was like, should we do it again? And then we did it again, and it became one of our favorites. It was like, it was so much fun.
You are right, yeah. I can't
remember which one it was. Just as a whole somewhere, there was just a whole episode that was done, dusted, and then just was like, no, it's not very good.
Tank it.
Yeah.
I think we even talked about putting it on the Patreon, you know. I'm sure we said at the time, should we put the bad version on our Patreon?
That's not a good vibe.
But that was why we didn't in the end, because we were like, well, why would we, not to like charge anybody for it, but just as like an extra, you know, whatever, like, oh, look, we recorded this one twice, here's the crap version. But then we were like, well, why would we want anybody to sit through essentially the same conversation twice, but like one
it's
of
like a
them
bad edit of a film.
It just didn't make sense.
People wouldn't.
So we just deleted it, I think, in the end.
Well, that's good advice. Yeah, excellent questions. That's the 2 questions for this week, guys.
Oh, there you go. Well,
thanks, patrons.
You can ask us a question if indeed you'd like, and all you got to do is sign up at patreon.com/Triple Takeover at the lowest tier, which in the UK is £1, maybe plus like iOS fees and things like this. But if you don't go through Apple, it's a little bit cheaper. So I will just say, always good advice. And so you can sign up lowest tier, ask us a question, or indeed get on there at slightly higher tier and vote in episode polls and everything as well. And you can get on our Discord. And actually, for anybody that has signed up and they're on our Discord, I think it's about 10 channels that you get on the lower tiers, or then you can upgrade to Inner Beast, where you get the full. I think it's now like 49 or 50 channels that we have going off on there. Yeah. So it's there's a lot.
Oh, it's like cable, but with chat.
Yeah.
There's one-off purchases. There's a TFN episode.
You can get on there. Well, actually, we just gave that away to our patrons. We just put all our TF Nation panels on there and things like that as well, so you can watch those. You can see Jason's surprise at being presented with a Supreme Cheetor live on stage.
Genuinely surprised.
By who was it presented by?
It was Jim Sorensen, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic dude.
He was there. Just the cheekiest of grins ever. Yeah. He was sitting there, you know.
But it is worth signing up, because there are some fun minisodes in the can with a special guest. There's quite a little run that's going to be quite humorous, I think.
Yeah.
Don't say any more.
Yeah, that's it. Tease it.
Who could it be?
So it'll be such a shock.
Yeah, somewhere he's hoping we joke.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Yep.
But also, if you have anything you want to say about issue 113 and James's run on comics or anything like that, hit us up on social media at all the Triple Takeover things, wherever we are. I can't even remember all those.
Blue Sky, Twitter,
Apparently there's a
Facebook.
TikTok.
TikTok.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
just videos of Jason being hench.
Not
Hench
anymore.
Jason.
Not anymore.
Non-hench Jason.
Just
Regular
wearing
Jason.
a jumper.
Clark Kent Jason, is it? Versus Hench Jason.
Wearing a muscle suit.
I'm not even desperate, Dan. You know.
Good God. I'm going to be
Guys.
chuckling about that all night now. But yes, do go and check us out on social media.
No
if
more
indeed
cow
you can
pies,
stomach more of us.
Yeah, no.
And thank you again to James Roberts for coming on and putting up with our nonsense. We do appreciate it and can't wait to have you back another time as well. So, but otherwise, thanks very much for listening, and we'll catch you for the next episode. Right. You guys all ready? Jason?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. I'll bring us in then, and we can just get going. See how we go. What episode is this? I haven't even thought.
113.
It is 113. Of course it is. Oh my God.
There's the outtake.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell it's been a long day.
It's been a long day, hasn't
Honestly.
it, Sixo? Yeah.
Oh, that was the reason why we did all of
I was
this.
going to
wasn't
say,
it?
what?
Yeah.
Is this a trick? Is this under false pretenses?
Yeah, actually, it's 311.
Oh, man. Good God. You can tell it's been a day.
It's been a day.